Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons miniature partner WizKids and their historic, epic event when they canceled the two Critical Role miniature products. First, the Critical Role Exandria Unlimited Calamity box set and the Critical Role Shade Mother box set. Both of these, they took orders on for them, and then they returned the money and they said, hey, you made your order in good faith. We appreciate your order. You can kick rocks. You're never going to get this. We're not going to print it. Right? And here's your money back. Right? No harm, no foul. But we're not going to make this product. Right? Now, I feel that this is one of the most critically important, sorry, no pun intended there, most important historical events of 2024 for Dungeons and Dragons. So let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons, because this is all about Dungeons and Dragons, right? And bumps in the road for Dungeons and Dragons, which increasingly are not allowed, right? Like from the TTRPG industry, because the TTRPG industry is starting to understand that it exists at the goodwill of Dungeons and Dragons, and in no other way does it exist for any other reason, in my humble opinion. All right, so let's get all the way there on this. So first of all, what happens on Dungeons and Dragons? Well, Dungeons and Dragons makes changes. Dungeons and Dragons makes changes every single world, every single year. Dungeons and Dragons makes changes every single year. Okay, and you know this because there are crises every quarter at least. In 2023, there was literally a crisis every single month. You'll find a video on this channel literally listing all the crises that happened on Dungeons and Dragons in the year of every single month in the year 2023. All right, so but Dungeons and Dragons doesn't have a crisis every month in every year. They definitely have a crisis every quarter, every season in and these crises come from when it changes things. So one, Dungeons and Dragons changes the world. Okay, that happened on February 7th, 1974, day one of Dungeons and Dragons, completely changed narrative for humanity forever. Right, it changed for the entire world. 1983, there was a change for the entire world. Evangelical Christian community came and said, we want to burn every Dungeons and Dragons book. We want to destroy this game so that no one can own it, read it, participate in it, do anything with it. We want it gone. We don't want it reduced. We want it literally destroyed, right? Like, we don't want a single Dungeons and Dragons book to exist. Now, that echoed again in 2023 with the Manic Panic. And that's where what we're talking about today was born. And that is the hate game, in my opinion, called Daggerheart. Daggerheart was announced from the 2023 Manic Panic. So the 2023 Manic Panic was when the OGL was changed by Wizards of the Coast. And the community said, oh my gosh, this is infuriating. We can't allow this. You own the OGL. It's your document to change, but we won't allow this. And so every OSR and indie got real excited. And we're like, hey, everybody's mad at Dungeons and Dragons right now, so we can announce a whole bunch of hate products, and all the hate that Dungeons and Dragons has right now in 2023, which perfectly matches the hate it had in 1983, we can use that to our advantage. And Daggerheart was one of these. So, basically Critical Role got excited and we're like, oh my gosh, we could beat Dungeons and Dragons. And in January 2023, everybody thought they could beat Dungeons and Dragons. Now, in the 50th year of its celebration, we all know no one can beat Dungeons and Dragons. Every single hate product that's come out has hit huge problems and has been abysmal failures to this point. Let me list them off. Tales of the Valiant, ridiculously, it was outpaced by literally a tiny little OSR product called Shadow Dark, right? Outsold, had more energy, more excitement than Tales of the Valiant. It's not even a competitor for OSR titles, let alone Dungeons and Dragons. It's not a real competitor for Dungeons and Dragons, okay? All right. So then MCDM, right? But the guy who's creating it, Matt Colville, barely talks about it anymore and just kind of shuffled it off to James Introcaso to finish it, right? And you know what does Matt Colville spend his time on? Making products for D&D Beyond, right? That's where his products belong. His MCDM studio is just a stable boy in the courtyard of Dungeons and Dragons at this point. Matthew Colville has completely surrendered any hopes of ever beating Dungeons and Dragons by putting his product on D&D Beyond, in my humble opinion. Now, what does the event that we're talking about, what does the cancellation of the Critical Role Exandria Unlimited Calamity box set and the Critical Role Shade Mother box set, what does the cancellation mean? Well, here you go. It means that Daggerheart should be immediately shelved. Daggerheart should never, ever be sold to anyone. Okay? Here's why. Okay, so first of all, there's real ramifications, real costs today for competing with Dungeons and Dragons if you're dangerous. And trust and believe, Matthew Mercer is dangerous, not Critical Role. Critical Role is not dangerous. No one in Critical Role. Every single person in Critical Role could be replaced tomorrow, and Critical Role would probably improve, except Matthew Mercer. You take Matthew Mercer out, Critical Role shuts down within 3 months, in my humble opinion. Nobody will ever care about it again. Not one lick, right? But you could replace every other person in it, and it'll keep steaming along and actually probably improve on its momentum, right? So, but Matthew Mercer is dangerous. That man, he can do a lot. He is the best dungeon master in the world. He is a D&D canon author, right? He's one of the few guys in the world who's created an actual canon used class for new class for D&D in the modern era. He's a real threat, right? And so basically, I think the reason those two products were canceled was that WizKids wanted to send a signal. They're like, hey, Dungeons and Dragons, we got a real miniature line with you guys. Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures. We sell a ton of them. It matters to our bottom line. It matters to your bottom line. And we want to let you know that this jumped up little upstart, Matthew Mercer, who thinks he's going to compete with you, he can, but he can go find his own miniatures printer, right? Because we're not going to back this, right? And so I actually think that the cancellation of in my humble opinion, the cancellation of the Critical Role Exandria Unlimited Calamity box set and the cancellation of the Critical Role Shade Mother box set was specifically done to WizKids to say, Dungeons and Dragons, we will always support you when somebody comes to knock you off the hill. This is, in my humble opinion, this is virtual war in the tabletop role-playing game, and allies are taking sides, right? And I think, and WizKids is like, hey, we're not going to let some jumped up upstart come in here and say they're going to replace Dungeons and Dragons. And so I think that Matthew Mercer should shelve Daggerheart. And the reason why is, first of all, it's going to fail, okay? And the world doesn't know this, right? I don't think WizKids knows this, and I don't think the D&D community knows this. The way we know that Daggerheart is an absolute guaranteed failure is it's created by the same guy who created Candela Obscura. It's literally Blades in the Dark refried beans. It's not. It's a complete nothing burger, right? This thing is not going to compete, right? But the reality is, products that are way worse can win the heart and soul if they get momentum. And I think WizKids is getting in the game to cut momentum on Daggerheart, right? And because people don't know that it's going to suck. And they could even get it, and it still could suck and be a massive success. A good example of that, I think, is Inside Out 2. I think that movie sucked. I think it was terrible. It's the #1 movie of 2024. It's absolute garbage, right? Like, it's, in my humble opinion, it's garbage, but it won the hearts and minds of Americans. And Daggerheart has the possibility to do that simply because it was rubbed on Matthew Mercer's face, not because it was good or designed well or written well or had good rules, right? And so I think this is the best way to understand these cancellations, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider like, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.